Hello and welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Welcome into our monthly space. I'm Vanessa Lowe. I host a radio show on G-Town Radio called Vanessa's Money Hour, and I'm also a member of the Public Banking Coalition here in Philadelphia. And this is our monthly discussion about our quest to have a public bank here in Philadelphia. Today we have a lovely and really experienced guest with us. Melissa Marquez. She was the CEO of Genesee Co-op Federal Credit Union. She retired last summer after 20 years with that organization. And Genesee was a founding member of the Rochester Public Banking Coalition. So we're going to hear about Rochester's path. She serves on the steering committee of the Rochester Public Banking Coalition. And she's also a board member for the Public Banking Institute, who's been such a great partner to us and other groups that are trying to do public banking. So just an update, you saw in the press release, there's a piece of legislation for the city of Rochester, but there's also another piece of legislation for the state of New York. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And it's interesting to note that the state level legislation, somebody who we've heard a lot about lately, Mayor Zoran Mandani, he co-sponsored that bill when he was a representative. And both those bills are currently in the New York Senate and the Assembly Banks Committee. So let me just turn it over to Melissa Marquez, and you can say hello to our guest, to our community here.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Philadelphia community and those interested in public banking. I'm very happy to be able to join you, and I'm equally interested in your efforts and initiative in Philly. I've been reading along with it for it feels like a number of years at this point. And in Rochester, New York, we're not a big city, we're a little city, but we're equally passionate about trying to bring public banking into fruition. I was involved with public banking. I'd say it's now been about close to 9 years, and really initially at the state level. There's a coalition in New York State that is specifically been formed to advance public banking at the state level. But I should say it's state legislation to allow or enable municipalities across New York State to be able to establish a public bank or get one chartered through the Department of Financial Services in New York. So that's how I got involved. And of course, even from the beginning, I learned more about public banking from learning about it through the Public Banking Institute's website and a lot of their recordings and initiatives, that really got me in learning about the idea of a public bank. One of the reasons I wanted to do this work was because as I was running a financial institution, a local community development credit union, and at that credit union, we wanted to find a partner to help us increase the amount of lending in our community. So that's where I saw, even as a CDFI, as a community development financial institution, a need for additional access to capital to be able to increase the lending needed in the city of Rochester, especially in low-income neighborhoods and in majority-minority neighborhoods within the city of Rochester, which is our target market as a CDFI.
Got it. Thank you. So for 9 years, it sounds like there's been work on that state level legislation that essentially was saying, let's help the municipalities or let's make it easier for municipalities to create their public banks. So how did we get to then the city of Rochester moving forward with their individual piece of legislation? Talk about that.
Yeah, what I want to say first is at the state level, trying to get this bill passed, we were able to get all of our, state legislators, both on the Assembly side and the Senate side, to co-sponsor the state bill. And that was lots of meetings. I'm sure you're familiar with this, lots of meetings to make that happen. And really, even as we were doing that, and our bill that's been before at the state level has a majority of the senators co-sponsoring the bill and a near majority of the assembly. But one of the biggest obstacles we've run into is really with the state leadership, right? Are the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly have not been willing to allow or advance the bill at the within the banking committees. And that was a big frustration for us, was we every time we thought we can try, we should be able to do this, we should be able to land this, we couldn't even get the bill, the state bill, before the banks committees on either side of the Assembly and the Senate. And because of that, our we had a public banking champion, Harry Bronson, one of our assembly members and a longtime assembly member, decide to work with the Assembly Banks Committee chair, who was from Syracuse, to try to advance a bill through home rule. So meaning the city of Rochester, our county legislator, our entire delegation of Senate and Assembly members, all coming together in support of a bill that would try to bring or permit the city of Rochester to have or start a municipal public bank. And that bill, introduced as a home rule bill, was seen as possibly being able to go much more quickly through the process, and especially because home rule bills generally, if you have your mayor, your county exec, all your legislators, your city council, all in favor, that oftentimes those bills come in late in the session and are often, they don't need to go through the committee processes, and they kind of go out of deference to the municipalities. They go through the legislative process more easily. The bill was advanced and through the Banks Committee on the Assembly side, but we were not able to, and this was 2 years ago, we were not able to get it introduced at the Senate level into the to be moved forward. But we also encountered opposition through our Chamber of Commerce, and actually through some of the larger financial institutions didn't know about it in advance, and that created a big challenge for this piece of legislation.
Yeah, that sort of marketing campaign that's necessary to get people behind you, particularly the other financial institutions, including the community development financial institutions. There's, sort of like territory or, just sort of fear of losing their business maybe, where it's like, no, 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 we're really trying to create more opportunities, and particularly for people who maybe you're not serving right now. So yeah. So what's the current status and what's the next step for the city bill that we feel like has a little more chance?
Mm-hmm. So the current status is one of the stumbling, there's two big stumbling blocks. One of the blocks has been that the bill provides or a state guarantee to the city of Rochester, to the municipality, that if there that guarantee basically assures that the municipality, the city of Rochester, would not be left, without any of the resources that it put into the public bank should the public bank run into trouble. And with that state guarantee and as part of the bill, again, the state leadership is not in favor of advancing this home rule bill. So it's gotten stuck the same way that the state bill has gotten stuck because of this additional piece requiring the state to back the bill. At the same time, the second obstacle has been through a couple of the financial institutions who are part of the Chamber of Commerce, and we're the Rochester Public Banking Coalition. We're working to do the education that is necessary to be able to uh, uh, let our community banks and our credit unions know that this is conceived as a partner, that there's no retail, that it's a partnership that will help participation lending to increase especially for affordable housing development in the city of Rochester.
Great. And let's go back to that. So the thing that's getting stuck is the legislation says if there should be some trouble with these loans that are being made, then the city was going to have to come in and sort of pay them off or something. Was that the issue? And they didn't want to agree to that?
Right. That
Okay,
somehow should, in the same way that FDIC insurance,
got it. Got it.
backs the, individuals'
Banks, yeah.
deposits up to the limit permitted, the state would be guaranteeing, that any potential, you know, loss or problems should the public bank of Rochester fail, the state would guarantee that for the municipality.
So are you all looking at changing the language in the legislation? Is there a backup plan?
Yeah. So those are some of the debates that we're having, right?
Got it.
Is what makes sense for us. And honestly, one of the things that, we're kind of beginning to pivot, there is the Rochester bill. We're doing some of the relationship building to help our community leaders who weren't familiar with this bill learn about it and hopefully come on board. But we're also moving forward with especially Public Bank NYC, the New York City Public Banking Coalition, because of the support of and the election of the new mayor who has been supportive of public banking. We're really kind of changing our focus almost back to the state bill, hoping that maybe a powerhouse mayor like Mandani can help us get the bill at the state level passed. But the Public Bank NYC is really thinking about doing a similar bill for New York City to the Rochester bill.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So they're in the thinking stages. Nothing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't stayed close enough to that coalition to know.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right. Great. So tell us about the network. So the Public Banking Coalition has been around for quite a while. We have a group of individuals who are very dedicated. I don't know that we have organizations who are part of our coalition, but was it started by the financial institutions? Like you're our, one of the few of our sort of bankers here. So was that what started the coalition?
So for the Rochester Public Banking Coalition, yep, Genesee Co-op, Federal Credit Union, or the credit union I ran, was a founding member. Also, another legal advocacy organization called Empire Justice Center was a founding member, and they have been very much involved in trying to support the work of just like the credit union, the work of the Rochester Public Banking Coalition. And a citizen action is part of it, as well as the Rochester Area Community Foundation, one of the vice presidents, has been involved with the coalition in the past. So just kind of continuing to try to talk about the economic inequality and
Yes.
imbalance, especially in the city of Rochester in comparison to the larger Rochester area, marketplace. And, we're just trying to continue to build uh, relationships. There's
Yeah.
always a lot of explaining to do to get people
Mhm.
on board.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Peter, I just saw a couple of questions come through. What questions do you have for Melissa?
Stan Shapiro asked the question of what sources of funding would the proposed Rochester Public Bank use for capital and deposits? And this might be an opportunity to talk a bit about the emergency capital investment program that Genesee Co-op FCU participated in.
Okay. So the primary, source of the money to capitalize um, a public bank for Rochester was going to come from the city of Rochester, helping to capitalize it. Our city council got on board really early, and throughout these years, the city council has supported the state legislation as well as the local legislation. So we're really counting on them. And our city has about, it fluctuates, but around $800 million on deposit at various institutions. So we would be taking a piece of that as well as some initial operating dollars to help get the public bank started. So that's the plan for capitalization. We were also hoping that the county and have, had discussions with the county about that this would be a hybrid, both while focused on the city in terms of mission. We would also be seeking county as the municipality additional kind of uh, joining of the city and the county in support of a public bank. Oh, and then I'm sorry, also you had asked about the emergency capital investment program. So that, you know, is a long name. The short name is ESIP. And that's a model that exists where the Treasury Department made available money to community development financial institutions, and I should say depository institutions. So those institutions who community development banks, community development credit unions, uh, were both able to access these funds, as opposed to some of the revolving loan funds that don't have deposits. They were not able to get these funds. These funds were specifically dedicated to or earmarked to help neighborhoods most impacted by the pandemic. And those neighborhoods are neighborhoods that are lower income and where people of color live. So, and it was designed to really concentrate lending in those neighborhoods. And for us, that was a natural, that's our target market, anyways, as a CDFI. So we applied for these funds, and it's basically, we got $2 million. It's a long term, 30-year subordinated debt instrument. This is, to help us increase our lending to these targeted neighborhoods. And it's very low cost to the credit union. We're paying significantly under 1% or under 2% for the funds. And we make loans, whether anywhere from mortgages, car loans, solar energy lending, a whole full gamut of lending in neighborhoods that were most impacted. Small business lending as well. It's very complicated. We could talk about ESIP for the entire time. I mean, for
You know,
another whole session. If we
yes, and it's interesting now. It's sounding familiar to me. I worked at the CDFI fund many years ago,
uh-huh.
but I remember the press release that came out about it, and I talked to, I think, maybe an old colleague, and you had to apply, but it was almost formulaic, right? Like you said,
Yes.
like the staff essentially like looked at the data of those who had gotten CDFI awards in the prior years and said
Mhm.
these are the ones that are sort of essentially the best fit and could really deploy those funds very quickly
Correct.
into those communities.
This is
Yes.
key for in terms of really who got the funds, um, and the maximum of that, there was like more than $1 billion, but the maximum that you could actually get was dependent on the amount of financing that you were already doing in those specific census tracts.
Yeah, which makes sense. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad
Melissa,
Genesee got.
Melissa, a quick follow-up question.
Mhm.
Is that subordinated debt obligation considered a part of your capital, or is it, how does it show up in the balance sheet of the credit union?
It shows up as part of our net worth, our capital that we have. It's within our retained earnings. We put it through our balance sheet. I mean our income statement, and it sits there. Uh, but in a sense it's a liability because it is a loan. So
Right.
it's a very specific type of both loan that gets to be counted as part of your net worth.
So you can
Mhm.
leverage your lending portfolio against it.
Yep, yeah. In terms of, what we would call asset liability management, we don't, and especially because it's 30-year dollar, 30 years is the term of the this debt instrument. We, it helps us be able to make more mortgages, right? They're 30-year
Right.
mortgages. So
Right.
it's very beneficial.
That's great. That's great. And tell us about the network of institutions that you would be partnering with. I don't know much about Rhode Island. I grew up in New York City,
Uh-huh.
but Rhode Island, how many CDFIs are up there? What other sort of partner financial institutions would you all, if the public bank gets created, who would be your primary partners, do you think?
Uh-huh. So, the way the Rochester Public Bank Act has been created is, we're the community banks, which we have a small number, but they're key to the Rochester area, as well as credit unions. There's maybe a dozen credit unions. I think, again, a lot of financial institutions, there's fewer and fewer. There's a lot of
Yeah.
mergers and acquisitions, which in a way really calls for why we need other partners in the mix to increase the kinds of investments that are needed for the city of Rochester. So our coalition is very focused on community organizations, neighborhood-based organizations, housing development organizations, but we also need, like they're not going to join the coalition, but one of the key partners for advancing our legislation we have an ongoing relationship with Canandaigua National Bank, a local bank, and the CEO of that bank took us many months to get an actual, appointment repeatedly to help him understand the benefits to the community to hit that could come to his particular community bank, and he's on board. It took us a while, but he listened, he understood, he began to get it, and we had someone from a CDFI from the Bank of North Dakota who came in and gave a presentation with his leadership staff and himself And he was like, let's make it happen. So we're just trying to keep doing the legwork to get people to be in support of public banking.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you got the local community foundations. They can be really powerful advocates because they've got so many sort of grassroots, regular folk who are interested in that. So that's really great. All right, we only have a few more minutes. Any more questions? I didn't really follow the chat
Maybe a
here.
quick one. Credit unions are cooperative entities by definition, and Genesee reinforces that by putting Genesee Co-op FCU in its name. Do you focus, let's say, to what extent do you focus on cooperatives within Rochester?
So, yeah, the credit union was founded through a food co-op that exists here in Rochester. It's now called Abundance Food Co-op, and that was our original founding membership. So that's how we got the co-op. Well, actually, the store used to be called Genesee Co-op Natural Food Store. So we became Genesee Co-op Federal Credit Union alongside the food co-op. We have done lending to worker-owned co-ops here in Rochester. It's not easy to do, but we've been able to do it. But one of the goals of why we'd love to see a public bank is because for a larger loan, we'd want to do it through a participation loan, a structure, which, again, I'm assuming you even know what participation loans are, but basically they're joint loans together where the financial institution maybe owns 10 to 50 to even 90% of the loan, and the rest is sold as through a contract it could be through the public bank or to the public bank.
With a few more minutes left, unless there's other questions. So you're on the Public Banking Institute committee, a new committee. Tell us about that new committee and what are some of the ideas for that committee?
So this is really, it's a committee that's going to help advance this important the education that's really needed and the relationships that need to get developed in the banking sector among financial institutions, especially targeted to community banks and the credit union movement, credit unions locally and nationally. So the committee is really intended to try to help develop those relationships, and in particular, because the Bank of North Dakota, the sole public bank that exists in the United States, the CEO, he has been making himself more available for speaking engagements and talking about and promoting the importance of a public banking to supporting community financial institutions, both community banks and credit unions, both traditional or what I call mainstream credit unions, as well as the community development financial institution sector as well.
Okay, so it sounds like it's really going to work on education and outreach and getting more people, more institutions behind this idea.
Right, into around also developing a strategy, right? Helping get a strategy, both for at the federal level and among the various states that have initiatives that are growing and developing.
There you go.
For public banking.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's 4:59 and we're going to continue the conversation, but we are going to turn the recording off. So thank you.